Hi, everyone. My name is Brooks,
I'm Will.
and we are two Survivor superfans, and this is the first episode ever of our little podcast that we're going to do called Tribal Talk. As far as I know, there's no other Tribal Talk that exists, but if there is, please don't sue me. And I'm going to we're going to try to stick with this name, but if for some reason we want to change it, we'll change it. This is just the beginning. But I thought it was a very fitting name. But like I said, we're two Survivor superfans, and we wanted to do, since this is the off season, we wanted to do something a little fun for our first video. We thought we'd do a fantasy draft, and then we decided we wanted to do a second chance to fantasy draft. We thought that would be fun. So we compiled our little lists. We haven't seen them, so we don't know who's going to pick what. But we are looking forward to it. And the only rules are they can only play once and they can't be a winner. So it can be someone from pre-merge, post-merge, doesn't matter. That's the rules. And I think we did a coin toss before, and I picked heads, and I won. So I'm gonna be the one to pick first, and I think we decided we're gonna do women first. So for the first woman on my tribe, I decided I want to pick someone who is a great social player, um, really entertaining to watch, really villainous. She's someone that I've wanted to see come back for the longest time. She's been asked back for Heroes versus Villains. She's flown out as an alternate, but she ended up not getting to play. But I think it's a crime we haven't seen her play again, so I think she deserves a second chance. Um, and that is Natalie Bolton from Survivor Micronesia. Uh, just just an entertaining character, part of the Black Widow Brigade, one of my favorite alliances in Survivor history. I think she comes in with a disadvantage being a fan,
Yeah.
but once you on any other season, Natalie does well.
Oh yeah.
So uh, I'd love to see her again. So did she make your list, Will?
Yeah. She was my number one pick actually for the women. So kind of mad,
Sorry
but
about it.
she's on the season. That's all that matters, right?
That's true, I guess.
Yes.
All right. So now it's your turn.
Okay. So my first pick for the women is going to be someone that I think isn't necessarily underrated. I think she gets a lot of flack, but I think that she's a very solid strategic player, and I think she suffers a lot from the edit in a season that is very heavily centered on some people who had more interesting stories than she did. However, I think that if we're gonna have a second chance this season, she's someone who has to be there in my brain just to kind of like I don't know, to solidify it. I think she needs a second chance because I think the way she played the game was so almost masterful in my opinion. A lot of people don't think that. I just think she really knew what strings to pull and when to pull them. And I'm probably going to get a lot of backlash for this. But so my first pick is going to be Hannah Shapiro from Survivor Millennials versus Gen X. I think she was a part of the wrong side of the numbers for a while coming into the merge. Like she wasn't in the minority of like Taylor Michelle J, but she was in the like she was against the super group that was like Chris and Brett and Sunday and Will. And so I think that Hannah really struggled early merge, but Hannah didn't vote incorrectly. except for the one vote that they blindsided Michaela on. I think that Hannah was someone who was really smart and really savvy, and I would love to see her play again.
Interesting.
Is she on your list?
She was not on my list. I am not the biggest Hannah fan, but
I don't think you're alone in that.
a lot of people don't like Hannah, but I think a lot of people also forget, like, she had some underrated moves, like the Sunday and the Brett boots were all her doing. And even like she turned on David at the end.
She did.
So I think she had I didn't like the first half of her game, but I think as the season progressed, I think she got better. I think ultimately Adam was just a more likable player for the jury, but I was a David fan for that season. I wanted him to win, so but
you got to watch the secret scenes. That's where Hannah's game is at.
It's all in the secret scenes.
It is. That's where Hannah's game is at. Sadly.
She's just not someone I would pick, but I definitely see your point.
Mm-hmm.
All right, and you get first pick of the guys.
Lit. Okay, so I think this is probably going to be another unpopular opinion. I'm full of those, I think. But so my first male pick is going to be someone who I think is really genuinely a very good, well-rounded player. I think he was very good at the physical portions of the game. I think he was really good at the social portions of the game. I think he is another person who just suffered because there were more prominent characters. And so I think he gets pushed under the rug a little bit and he's easily forgotten. But I think in terms of seeing someone come back in a second chances season who would be able to do some serious damage, I think he's a pretty solid pick for that. And that's Benry from Survivor Nicaragua. I would love to see him come back and play again. So that's my first male pick. And like at Survivor Production, bring Benry back.
Benry. I forgot he existed.
See, there are more prominent characters in Nicaragua that you like. If you think about Nicaragua, like as many of us try not to do, like you're not gonna think of Benry first. You're gonna think of Brenda. You're gonna think of Marty, Jane.
I think he probably gets overshadowed. Like there's a lot of ugliness on that season that he doesn't necessarily get involved in, and that's probably why we don't see him that much. But I definitely see your point. I think on any other season, Benry does well. It's just, Nicaragua was just a fluke. I mean, that's, I mean, the only really redeemable people didn't, go very far. So
or they quit.
Well, yeah. But
I don't know though. Benry did get into a little bit of the dirty action. You don't remember that? He had his voting confessional for Alina. Dirt Squirrel. Oh, the Dirt Squirrel.
Alina was on. I feel like we all saw that coming though, because Alina was on the bottom for a while. But
I loved her too, though.
Yeah, I'm surprised she hasn't come back either. But Nicaragua is just not a season I personally like to go back and watch. So I've probably forgotten a lot about it, probably for the better. But
Medallion of Power.
Oh God. But Benry, he was a likable guy, good in challenges. So I think on a different season, he probably still goes far. I'm not sure he'd win. I think he'd have to change his game up some, but I'd be interested in seeing him play again for sure. Yeah. All right, so I raise your challenge beast with one of my own. So I was looking at different guys that obviously bring some muscle to the table, and I thought this guy stood out to me because I think he's a very underrated villain, especially on his season, which is Philippines. I think he makes a big move, by pitting Abby and RC against each other. That's one of those defining moves of that season. Is the whole Abby RC conflict, and he was really the root cause of that. And I think people forget that. He also orchestrated Jeff Kent's Blindside, which is also a hilarious episode. But I'm talking about Pete Yarkowski. He was on the Tandang tribe that won all the challenges and never had to go to tribal council. So we really didn't see much of him in the pre-merge. But I think once the merge got going, he started playing a little harder. I actually think people caught on to him, and that's why he got blindsided. But, great physical challenge beast that can help out in challenges, and an underrated mastermind. Like, I think if he was on a season, people would forget how devious and, manipulative Pete can be. And so I could see him going very deep and potentially winning. So my top guy was Pete. So
Okay.
did he make your list?
Yeah, Pete was in my top 10 guys. I think Pete, like you said, Pete's just like, he's so interesting to watch, I think, as a character. I can't think of too many people who have played quite the way that Pete did, like played on television, not necessarily like played the game the way Pete did, but like I don't think we've had someone who has been kind of that character on TV in a while in Survivor Land, just because like he's not someone you want to root against, but he's kind of hard to root for. I don't know. I think he's really masterful. And again, like, yeah, you definitely forget about him with your Abbies, and you're never going to forget Denise, and like Pinner was on that season. Like there are just so many people that kind of overshadow Pete. But no, I'd love to see Pete come back. He does little like coffee chats on YouTube, and I watch those sometimes when they're about Survivor. I watch them. I think they're pretty interesting. I think he knows the game. I think he'd do really well in a second chance this season.
Yeah, I'm definitely on the Pete wagon. All right, is it my turn? Okay, yeah. My turn. I'm picking a woman. So I want a strong female, but also one who has a great social game. And my next pick is someone who hails from the Tocantins season. She was not in a good position at the merge, but was able to find cracks in the Timbira alliance. And somehow, they were in a 3-person minority against 6 other people, and they managed to make it to the final 4 because they have such a superior social game. And I'm choosing Taj George, a very underrated player in my mind. I know JT is the golden boy, and Steven's like the, strategist, but I feel, yeah, the wizard. But I think Taj is, she really reminds me of Cirie. Like they have a similar like play style, but Cirie is not as physically strong as Taj is. So when you can have both of those combined, like that's a real like valuable member on your tribe for sure. And she's stuck with her alliance, so I think it shows that she's loyal. So I don't think people will necessarily be out to get her from the get-go. So I think she could go very far. She plays a similar game like she did in Tocantins. I know she was considered for Heroes versus Villains, but I think she was cut for probably multiple reasons. I'm not sure if she turned it down or not, but I think they had probably too many people from Tocantins anyway, with Coach and Tyson and JT. And then I think she would have been on the Heroes tribe.
Right.
And then she and Cirie have such similar play styles, so it was like, so Cirie versus Taj, we're going to have Cirie. So, but I think Taj is a great player in her own right. And so I think she deserves a second chance.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, she was in my top 15 women. I think a lot of people forget that Taj also is the one who initiated the Exile Island alliance, which was really pivotal to like the storyline pre-merge. Was
Unprecedented.
Yeah, it had never been done before. Like the alliance with her and Brendan and Steven and Sierra, it didn't work. Like Brendan and Sierra definitely got the short end of the stick on that one. But I mean, without like if a couple things change in Tocantins, that could have been the final four. I think Taj was. No one remembers that about Taj, I think, and I think people should because I think it's really cool.
Yeah. Such an underrated player that really deserves to come back.
Mhm.
Just, I would love to see her back.
Yeah.
All right, your turn.
Okay, so I actually am also going to pick a physical threat, I think, for my next woman. This is someone who I think, again, my theme so far has been people who have suffered from their just being bigger characters. This is someone from Korong, who I think was probably the best well-rounded player. Um, I love Aubrey Bracco more than life itself, and like I think Aubrey played a fantastic game, but clearly she lost because the jury wasn't a huge fan of her. This person, like the person that I'm picking, the jury also didn't like her very much, but that's a different story for a different time. And that's going to be Sydney Gillen. I think that Sydney is someone who dominates in challenges when she needs to. Um, I think she's honest and loyal. I think she's super strategic. Like I think she genuinely understands the game. Like she knows when to cut people off. She knows when to turn on people. She knows who to stick with. And also, like, let's talk about heartbreaking vote outs. Like watching her lose that fire making challenge in Korong was miserable. Like that was so like that would hurt. Um, and I would love to see Sydney come back, and I really hope she does. I would be really disappointed if she didn't.
Okay. She was not in my top five, but she was one of my alternates because, I mean, like you said, challenge beast. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
she's does bodybuilding. Like,
Yeah.
obviously, she's going to be good in challenges. But also just a really likable player. Like,
Yeah.
she was smart to dump Scott and Jason, and then team up with Aubrey and her gang. Like that
Uh-huh.
was just like she made the right moves. Ultimately, I think uh, she gets screwed over with Joe getting medevaced because I think at that point,
Yeah.
final three is Aubrey, Sydney, and Joe. But
Yeah.
then um, Joe leaving and then Michelle winning the last immunity really cost her. But
Yeah.
I'd be happy to see her back. I like Sydney a lot. So
Mm-hmm. All right. So I guess next is me picking a guy. So my next pick is going to be someone who I think is another very well-rounded player, someone who I think played very well socially, very well physically. He was all right. He was pretty adequate strategically. I think he played his position in the game very well. I think he was just completely outplayed by the winner of the season, who was just playing strategically at a level different than everyone else. That is John Mish from San Juan del Sur. I think um, I really love John and Jacqueline. I'm very torn between the two of them because like I would love to see both of them come back and play again. They obviously wouldn't be able to play again together. Um, I think Jacqueline is just this much better at the social part of the game than John is. I think Jacqueline has a better, uh, she has better instincts, I think, than John does. But I think that in terms of like seeing someone come back for a second chance this season, John is someone who would have more longevity in the game than Jacqueline would. I think John is someone who is a really strong character. He's really likable. He's really rootable, and I think that he's like gonna make it to the merge in a second chance this season. Like I think he's too big of an asset to the tribe. Um, hope like I second chances isn't necessarily about who is the best physically, but I think John is someone who gets in really well with people because he was on the bottom originally in San Juan del Sur with the Drew vote, and he turned that around and pulled himself back into Missy's good graces. You know, the wonderful fairy godmother invited him to the ball. So, right? Isn't that the wasn't that what Reed said?
I don't know what the heck Reed said, honestly. That whole jury speech, I was like,
Yeah.
what? What's
But
happening?
John was invited to the ball when he really shouldn't have been in terms of like threats, and he was always in the middle. They always knew he was in the middle, and they didn't go after him. No one wanted to except for Natalie. So I just think John is someone who would be a really good pick for a second chance this season.
Yeah, he was an alternate of mine. I mean, he's such a likable guy, just like everyone likes John.
Yeah.
No one had nothing bad to say about John. I think obviously he put trust in the wrong people,
Yeah.
but I really think, that shows his loyalty. So
Yeah.
probably in a second chance season, people aren't gonna, if he plays in a similar way, people aren't gonna
Yeah.
think, oh, John's gonna backstab me, gotta get him
Yeah.
out. And I mean, good in challenges, reliable in challenges,
Yeah.
just a good social player. Like I said, no one
Yeah.
has anything bad to say about him. So uh I'm here for John getting a second chance. He was actually going to be up for the voting in second chance, but he missed the phone call.
That's terrible.
I know, isn't that like he was busy and
Horrible.
he didn't? Well, technically it was his fault because he didn't call him back. But
Gotcha.
I'm just like, shouldn't you have this casting agent's number saved or something? I don't
Yeah.
know, but
He totally would have been on too. Like he 100% would have been voted on.
possibly.
I think
But
because he was recent and he was likable. I think he would have been on that season.
I hope that doesn't make them think he's like flaky and not ask him again. But
Right. That would
I
suck.
don't think that's the case. I think
Yeah.
we're gonna see him again. It's just a matter of when. But I think we're more likely to see him than Jacqueline.
Yeah, I would agree. I think I would prefer to see Jacqueline come back and play again.
Yeah.
But we're more likely to see John come back.
Okay. I raise your San Juan del Sur player with one of my own. This guy, he pretty much was running the game in the pre-merge. I mean, I remember thinking like, oh, this guy's gonna win. And then he doesn't. He like the merge happens and he gets blindsided. I'm talking about Josh Canfield,
Yeah.
who was a great social player. He pretty much manipulated that whole tribe in the beginning. And I think things start to go wrong for him when he gets together with Reed, because I think they're just too strong of a couple, and they just they had to split him up, and Josh had the better game, so they're like, we're gonna vote him out first. So,
Yeah.
But I think he would benefit being on a different season without his loved one, because I really think that was a liability for him. Um, and I look at him on Instagram, and he's like working out and stuff. So he's like big now. Like he'd be great in challenges probably. So, and he was considered for the original second chance, but he's on Broadway. So he was doing some show, and he couldn't obviously take time off from it. But hopefully they let him know they want him back in enough advance. Maybe he won't have a work obligation to play again,
Yeah.
So I'd love to see him back. Did he make your list?
He did not make my list, actually. I was not a huge Josh fan. I think we've talked about this before, but I'm just like, I don't know. I think that in terms of all returnee seasons, you do want people who are really great players, but like you want great players who are also characters. And I just think that in terms of like being a survivor character, out of the pair of them, Reed was the better character. And so Josh kind of like you forget about Josh. At least I forget about Josh. Like in the back of my mind, it's like, yeah, I remember that Josh played really well pre-merge, but that's all I remember because he was first, like he was the first merge boot, and then Reed was just so like Reed was more prevalent in the merge portion of the game that I just don't remember Josh. So I didn't have him down. I don't disagree with you. I'd be okay if Josh came back. I'm not sure I'd be excited to watch him play again, but I wouldn't hate watching him play again. If that makes sense.
I think honestly there's so many characters on that season that I think Josh may be someone who gets forgotten. But I think, clearly the producers remembered him because they asked it back and he just couldn't. But hopefully, I think we'll see him again like John, just a matter of when. But I'd be totally okay with a second chance season. I don't think he, right off the bat, is someone that you find most threatening. So I think he, on a second chance season, he could go far.
Yeah. Yeah. Depending on how he played it, I would agree. If he's gotten a lot more muscular, though, I wouldn't be so sure about it. Because if he's physically threatening, but people also remember that he's strategically threatening, then that might be someone you would want to get out right before merge.
He don't look like Pete, but he been working out.
Mm-hmm.
At least according to Instagram. Okay. So my turn, and I get to pick a lady. Yeah. And I'm going old school. This is someone... Yeah, because Will loves old school. I'm going for someone who was up for the voting, actually, for Cambodia and did not make it. And people already know probably who I'm talking about. I was heartbroken that this person did not make it. I voted for her all the time. I much rather would have seen her over someone like Kimmy Kappenberg or Monica, who... I mean, neither of them really did that much, but we'll talk about that another time, Will. But I think she would have been great. Of course, I'm talking about T-Bird Cooper from season 3, Africa. Just one of the most likable people to ever play, honestly. Like, no one has anything bad to say about T-Bird. Like, everyone loves T-Bird. Even in Africa, they had a hard time voting her off because they just liked her so much. But she was just on the wrong side of the numbers, and that's what happens. But she knows the survival aspect. She lived in probably the toughest conditions that anyone's ever had to survive in on the Africa season, where they had to drink water out of the elephant's pooping hole. So yeah, that's not ideal. But she's done that. I know she's in her 50s, but the woman works out. Like, she's fine. Like, she's ready. Probably the hardest thing from that Cambodia voting reveal is when Jeff Probst is telling her she's not going, and just the look on her face, like, everyone's hearts were breaking. And I guess she does, it's kind of like what happened with Shane Powers. Like, there's a whole new generation of Survivor fans that just don't know her.
Yeah.
Although apparently they know Kimmy, but they just don't know her. And Africa's sometimes a forgotten season anyway. So, but just a likable social player. You look at the potential people that could play. She is not the biggest fish to fry out there. So you are not immediately targeting her. So I think she goes far.
Mm-hmm.
Was she on your list, Will?
No, she wasn't. I don't think that would surprise you very much. I love T-Bird as a person. Like, I think T-Bird's a great person. I didn't watch Africa. I've never watched Africa in its entirety. Like, I've seen the moments from Africa, but I haven't watched the entire season. So I'm not connected to T-Bird in any way. So I did not put her on my list. But again, she's another one of those where I'm okay if she comes back. I think that, she either goes one of two ways. in a second chances season in New School Survivor. She either goes the Jeff Varner route and attempts to play the game and makes it really far, a la Kimmy. Not to say that Kimmy played the game incredibly hard, but I think Kimmy played it more so than someone like Kelly Wigglesworth, where, if T-Bird went that route, then she would just be someone easy to pick off once we get to the merge. Because I think I agree, like, she's so personable, it's hard to get rid of her. But I think also what we've seen in New School Survivor, at least like new era Survivor, where things are so like shaken up and everything, people don't really care how likable you are. They'll like, if they think you're a threat, you're gonna go home. Like, it doesn't necessarily matter if they really, like, if you're their best friend, they'll still stab you in the back and send you home, because that's just how Survivor is now. But I mean, I could see her doing really well, so I'm okay with it. You're just giving me the death glare.
Yeah. T-Bird's the best. I don't know what you're talking about, but anyway. All right. Love you, T-Bird, if you're listening. So your turn.
Okay. I think my next pick is going to be pretty controversial. The more I think about this player, the more unsure I am of how well she would do in a second chances season. But I'm just so intrigued by her as a person. And I feel like she's someone who understands the game. She, holds her own in challenges. Like, she's not weak. She's not a huge physical threat, though. But I think, she's not the most socially savvy, because she kind of just says whatever she wants whenever she wants, in and out of the game. She's definitely voiced her opinions of current and past house guests. This isn't Big Brother. Castaways. To like,
definitely a different show.
Definitely. But she doesn't really care about what people think about her, and I think that's so great. And I'd be really interested to see her play again, because I think that, she could potentially do really well. She could potentially do terribly, but she could also do really well. And so I'd just be interested to watch Jen Brown from Worlds Apart play again.
Jen Brown.
Yes.
Interesting.
Yeah, I know. Controversial. I mean, listen, I think she's good at making chaos. You know what I mean? And outside of a season, like, okay, different kinds of chaos. But I mean, I think Cass is a good example, though, of someone who plays similarly. Like, I think Cass definitely is more game savvy than Jen is. But, like, Jen makes that chaos because she just says whatever she wants. And in a season that isn't Worlds Apart, where you don't have all of the blue collars who are like so determined that a good person is going to win the game, that like that chaos makes paranoia and it makes people do some crazy stuff. And I think Jen, we saw glimpses of it in Worlds Apart. It didn't pay out for her, but I think that some of her chaos paid out for people like Mike and Carolyn.
Yeah, I mean, she's definitely an entertaining character, and we may see her back just because of that. Not even because she's a smart strategist, but just because she was entertaining to watch, because she's so unfiltered. But that was part of the reason why I didn't pick her, was because she is so unfiltered. Because I mean, if I'm looking at a cast and I'm looking and like, who could win out of this, I'm not picking Jen Brown, But I see your point.
Unassuming.
I'm just, I'm just not the biggest Jen Brown fan, but she had some moments. Like, she plays an idol, and so that's a big moment that gets rid of Kelly, who at that point Mike and Kelly were like two peas in a pod. Like, they could have been the power couple of the season, but then.
Probably the last likable person to be voted off of that season.
Yeah.
I mean, that's false. I mean, we have some of the underdogs that get voted out immediately following Kelly, but like, other than that.
Maybe Jen would have benefited again. Like, we're going to keep saying this, like, on another season, she would have done better, but.
Right. Which makes sense for second chances.
Yeah.
People who would benefit from a different season.
Yeah. So. Jen Brown.
Yeah.
All right. Your turn.
Yeah. Awesome. I'm going to pick another another new era Survivor player. Surprise, surprise. This person I think is someone who is really good at the physical portions of the game, really good at the social portions of the game. I don't think he's very strategically savvy. I think he could be. I think he could be. He has the opportunity to be better at the strategy part of the game. And that is Jay Starrett from Millennials versus Gen X. So another person from a really recent season. But I just think that as a character, Jay is so intriguing in that he kind of plays like an old school character, but it works for him. I don't know, because we've seen people play old school esque in New Era Survivor and it not work. But Jay, their names are too similar. I was thinking Joe. We've seen Joe try to play an old school game in a New Era Survivor season and it not pay off. But I think it would have paid off for Jay because I think Jay wins against everyone in Millennials versus Gen X if he makes it to Final 3, except for David.
Yeah, Jay really reminds me of like he's this like the new generation's like Ozzy. And even I think he's sort of like I mean, I love Malcolm, but I think even Malcolm is sort of like, I mean, we just saw him play. Well, not that much, but you know, even he is sort of getting older, and Jay is sort of this like young new guy. Version. Like all the young Survivor fans are like adding him on Snapchat and all that stuff. Like he's very much like a new age player for sure. Something about those man buns.
You're right. I think he's he is the next Ozzy, Malcolm, Joe, but I don't think that Jay has the like slight tinge of I don't really want to use this word, but I'm going to use it. Like the slight tinge of arrogance that the other three of them have. Like I think I think Ozzy, Malcolm, and Joe all have shades of I know I'm good at this. So like
they have a certain like swagger to them almost.
Yeah. Where they like they know they're good at the challenges and they know they're good at the game and they know people like them. So like you better respect the fact that I am here. Like this is mine. And I don't think that Jay has that. I think Jay is very just like
laid back.
Yeah, he's very laid back. He's very likable.
Like he's someone you want to hang out with, you know?
Yeah.
You just want to hang out with him. He's fun.
Yeah.
So
he plays with his heart, and the other three play with their brains, I think.
Yeah.
Ish. Malcolm plays with his brain. Joe plays kind of with his brain.
Yeah, I think it's evolving. Soon we'll have like a nerd with a man bun. We'll have Cochran with a man bun. That's the evolution of the surfer bro, whatever. Anyway.
OG Fabio.
Yeah. Oh God, that's a different. We're talking about people we like. Anyway, so I guess it's my turn. Oh, Jay did make. He was an alternate of mine, but was not in my top 5 guys. Okay. But I'm gonna go with someone who went out pre-merge.
Okay.
And this person will probably come as no surprise to you. They are probably one of my favorite pre-merge booths. They were on Blood versus Water, which to me,
okay,
yeah, you know who I'm about to say. So I feel like the newbies in Blood versus Water were at a disadvantage from the get-go, but even more so for this guy because he was an alternate. He wasn't supposed to be actually in the game. He was kind of thrown in at the last minute. So he didn't really have a chance to like pre-game like the rest of the people did. And yes, pre-game alliances are a reality, whether we like it or not. But anyway, that's not what we're going to talk about. But he just didn't have a chance to participate in that. So obviously he's not going to go that far. excuse me. Obviously, he's not going to go that far. Um, of course, I'm talking about John Cody, who is also husband to one of my favorite players, Candace. Fight me if you don't like her. I don't care.
He will fight you.
Fight me. I'm being serious. But I just love her. I talk to her on Twitter all the time. But anyway, John is just like, I think, would have just benefited from being on a different season. It's like this, it's a recurring theme for all of these people, most of them. You know, any season where he's out on his own, probably not playing with Candace. Like, I love Candace, but she's a threat too. You know, she's a strong female player. So they're just like two like physically great, and they're both intelligent. So just too big of threats together, but on their own. Like, I think John can go pretty far, and I think probably next time around he won't be as trusting of some people, because I think that may have been his downfall from the beginning. Also, he won't have the situation of, you know, Candace is giving him the idol clue, because you know, that was sort of like a, you know, like a
red card, red flag.
Yeah, that, but it was just too many things not in his favor, so it's not a surprise he doesn't make the merge. He almost makes the merge with Redemption Island, but you know, it just didn't happen. But likable guy. I think if you are in a cast of second chancers, I don't think John is someone who you're immediately going to go after.
Yeah.
I think there's other fish to fry. Just my read on it, but great in challenges, like I said, so you need him for those. So yeah, I'd love to see John back. Did you have him on your list?
I did. Yeah, he was in my top 5 actually. I'd love to see John come back.
That makes me so happy. I don't know why that makes me happy, but it does.
I'd love to see John back. I think John did well for what he had. I think he suffered from being on a cast with someone else who just made his experience bad. I don't know. Like, I think John definitely was at a disadvantage because of who he was on a tribe with. And that's all I'm going to say. I don't, you know, don't want to go there.
It's just kind of a wash for the newbies.
It is.
Like, they didn't
for
have
most
a chance.
Of them. Yeah. Sierra definitely gave Tyson a run for his money right there at the end.
She voted out her mom.
It was smart, though. The only thing that she did that was dumb was selling Caleb and Hayden out to Tyson. I think if she hadn't done that, she wins. That's neither here nor there, though. That's not what we're here to discuss.
Yeah. I just like saying, she voted out her mom, just because it's funny. It's become like a meme almost. But yeah, I'm just, I love me some John Cody. He's nice to look at, too. Anyway, okay, your turn. Oh, wait, is it my turn?
No, it's your turn.
Okay. All right, I am gonna. I have Taj as a challenge beast, but Natalie and T-Bird aren't necessarily challenge beasts, so I'm gonna go with another challenge beast.
Okay.
It's someone from Survivor Philippines. She was part of the Tandang tribe. They never went to tribal council, and then when the merge happened, she got voted out her first tribal council. Pinner played the idol, so she got idled out. And I'm talking about RC, obviously.
Yeah.
Huge physical asset. I mean, she was doing more than the guys some of the time. Like, like, I would want her on my tribe, you know, to do some of that heavy lifting. Like, huge physical asset. I think her game kind of gets plagued by what happens with Abby.
Yeah.
Like, I think we don't get to see much of her besides her fighting with Abby. And I think if you take Abby out of the picture, I think it would be more interesting to see what she does by herself. And she was actually supposed to compete on Blood versus Water, but
Yeah.
her dad did not pass the medical exam. So that's when John and Candace were brought in. But maybe it's kind of good that RC wasn't on that season. Maybe she'll get to come back. I know they asked her to come back for the first second chance, but they also asked Abby, and she didn't want to play with Abby. So I think, Abby's already played again. I'm not sure if we'll see her again because her second time wasn't that notable, but I think RC, I don't think she would have to worry about playing with Abby. I think if she can get out there and focus on her own game, and I think she'd be great.
Yeah. The only thing I disagree with is that Abby didn't play well in second chances. That's all I'm saying. Something I disagree with.
I guess I'm not saying she didn't play well. She just played the same game as the first time.
I mean, she played pretty well the first time too. That's all I'm saying.
She didn't win.
No, but I mean, neither did RC. So
she was just a little too confrontational, to put it lightly.
Yeah, no, correct. No, RC was on my list.
She was on your list?
Yeah, she was in my top 10. I'd see RC back. She's another one of those people that, like, I'm not dying to see her come back, but I would totally understand and be down for her to come back. Like, there are people who, if they come back, I'm going to be super stoked for. Like, this past season, so excited to see Aubrey come back, but, like, not as excited to see Sarah come back. But I did not want Sarah to come back, and Sarah ended up playing incredibly. So, like, I'd be okay with RC coming back.
Yeah. I think she'd be great.
Yeah. Maybe she'd pull an Officer Sarah.
Maybe. I think, we just didn't see that much of her other than fighting with Abby. So I think we really need to, like, get to know her better, Yeah. And there's a lot of people from the Philippines that need to come back, but RC in particular sticks out to me.
Yeah.
All right, your turn.
All right, I'm going to do another really obscure pick. I think that if this had happened 5 years ago, then this pick probably wouldn't be as obscure. I think people were very pro this person, especially immediately following her season. This is someone who I think does really well in challenges. I think she understands the game really well. I think we're going to keep saying this over and over again. It's probably just going to be annoying at this point, but, like, really would have benefited from being in a season with different people. And that person is Christine Shields Markowski, I think, from Survivor South Pacific. I think, she obviously suffered from not being a part of the coach cult. They just, they determined that she was too outspoken. They just couldn't have that. And so they voted her out, but she won every single Redemption Island duel until, Savai voted Ozzy out of the game with the intention of bumping her out so that she couldn't come back in, which was dumb. But again, different story, different time. I think that Christine is someone who, like, 100% deserves to play again because she didn't get to actually play the game for that many days anyway. But she's proven that she's a physical threat. I think she's probably still got it, I'm sure. Like, she comes across as that kind of woman to me. I don't know. I think it'd be really cool to see Christine play with people who are either A, more memorable than her, or two, like, bigger targets than her. I don't know. I just think that Christine is someone who would do really well in an all-returnee season because she's unassuming, but she's also really game savvy and strong.
Cool. She did not make my list, but I definitely see your point. I mean, I liked Christine on her season, on a season where there weren't many people to like. But I guess for me, I just had other people that I preferred, I guess. But
Yeah.
maybe if she were to come back, she'd probably have to, she in a way she's kind of like Jen. She'd have to be more filtered,
Yeah.
just because I mean, the first day on the beach, she's like, "I want Coach gone,"
Yeah.
and everyone's just like clutching their pearls.
See, to be fair though, in my mind, that would be the most logical thing to do anyway. Like you would expect for a tribe of like that is majority new people to want the people that are threats out there. Like I get that he was an asset to them in the beginning, but I don't think it was wrong for her to assume that other people would agree with her. Like obviously she was wrong. Because you have people like Brandon on there who are related to other people. So like
You know what they say about assumptions.
yeah. I don't know. I get where she's coming from in voicing
I think
that.
it was just too hard, too fast.
Yeah, oh yeah. Not like what's her name? Simhar. Not Simhar levels of too fast, but definitely too fast.
Who?
Simhar. You
I
don't
don't know
remember
who
her?
you're talking about.
She was the first boot of South Pacific.
Oh.
I would do anything for this man. You don't remember that? Her
No.
reciting. She was a spoken word poet. You gotta remember her. I'm
I
pretty
have
sure that's her
not
name.
rewatched that season because
Don't
I don't
rewatch.
watch.
No, don't rewatch it. Just YouTube clips of her at Redemption Island saying her poem to Jeff Probst about what she would do for this man to stay in the game.
The
You
only
gotta do it.
person I liked was Edna.
Oh, and Dawn. I love Dawn.
But Edna will never come back.
No, bless her.
Okay. So now, is it your turn?
Yeah. Now I'll pick a guy.
Okay.
So, I think I'm gonna go with someone who's actually old school. I think like it's very loose old school. It's more like middle school if we're being real, but like it's still pre-heroes versus villains. So this is someone who I think dominated their season. To be completely honest, like they were the best strategic player. They were pretty great socially. They were okay physically. Like they could win challenges. I think he's someone who could come back right now and not be an easy target just because people don't necessarily remember him because he wasn't as big of it. Like he was a pretty big character, but you're not going to think of him first when you think of his season, which is Gabon. I'm going to pick Kenny Huang. I would love to see Kenny play again. I think that'd be so great. Like, I don't know. I just like, he's such an underdog, but he's also really good at the game. I think, Lord, it's been so long since Gabon aired. It's hard to remember who you rooted for, like when the season aired. But I'm pretty sure I was team, like I wanted Bob to win towards the end there. But like I was definitely on the underdog side because I remember hating Corinne and Randy. So like, I don't know. I would love to see Kenny play again. It was great watching him play the first time. So,
Well, you'll be happy to know he was in my top 5.
lit.
So thanks for that.
He was my number 6. He wasn't even in my top 5.
But he was in my top 5.
Right, but no, that's what I'm saying is I took him and he was in your top 5, but he wasn't in mine. So
I'd like to report a robbery. But yeah, Kenny was definitely king of Gabon. I mean, he orchestrated pretty much everyone's exit in the pre-merge. They convinced Susie to flip on Marcus, which completely changes the trajectory of the game.
yeah,
Because you're like thinking, Marcus, Corinne, Charlie, Randy, Bob, and Susie are like a lock, to go to the end, and they're just going to vote off everyone else.
yeah.
And that just doesn't happen thanks to Kenny.
No,
and
you're right.
it actually becomes a lot more interesting that way,
Yeah.
I think.
Yeah.
But I think he was an alternate on Heroes versus Villains.
Yeah.
But I think they picked Randy instead. But so they've shown interest in him coming back. I mean, I'd love to see him back. I think, he's a fun character because I mean he's like this. He's not someone you expect to excel at Survivor. Like he's
Yeah.
this like nerdy like video game guy who does not interact with people
Yeah.
hardly ever, and
Yeah.
then he's all of a sudden he becomes this like huge social threat. Like what,
Yeah.
like so he's very underrated in that respect. So
Yeah.
I'd love to see him come back again, and
Yeah.
that's why I had him in my top 5 guys.
Yeah. One could say he was the Cochran before Cochran was Cochran.
Oh, definitely.
And he played better. He played better the first time. And Cochran got a second opportunity. I think Kenny should.
Yeah.
Let him win.
Make Survivor Kenny again.
I don't know about that.
But yeah, I like Ken. He's fun. All right. Is it my turn?
Yeah, pick a guy.
Pick a guy. Okay. I raise your skinny, lovable nerd with one of my own. And that pleasure goes to someone from a very recent season, Millennials versus Gen X. Someone who...
I wonder who.
You know who I'm going to pick. He was definitely an underdog in the beginning, sort of like Kenny. Somehow pulls a miracle and doesn't get voted first off, and then sort of runs up the score from there. Of course, I'm talking about David Wright.
Yep.
And he, like, one of my favorite episodes from that season is when he plays the idol on Jessica and Lucy goes home. Like, that's one of my favorite episodes. And he didn't even think he was going to play his idol until that very moment,
Yeah.
And so that's just fun to watch. And then when he get to the merge, he sort of becomes in that power position because he has that rivalry with Zeke, and then he's the one who comes out on top, and he just sort of runs the game from there. He convinces Hannah to flip. I didn't necessarily see that coming. I thought she was going to stick with Zeke, and then you're thinking he's going to win. Like the people who are getting sent home, they're like, "Congratulations, David, you just won $1 million." Like I think it was Brett who said that, but and then Ken, his alliance flips on him at Final Four, and you're just like, now who's gonna win, And but he just played a good game. The only thing is, I'm not sure he could replicate it in a second chance season. I think people would be after him, but I would definitely like to see him try.
Yeah.
Because all he can do is try. I think, he's not the biggest challenge beast, obviously, but I think, he's good at like the puzzles and stuff. So maybe put him on the puzzles. I don't know. But I like David. I think, probably someone who everyone would kind of be after, but I think it would be fun to see how it plays out.
Yeah.
Was he on your list?
I'm not a huge fan. Like, I don't dislike David. I wasn't rooting for David. I just kind of got tired of it, like the storyline, just because I don't know. I don't like it when television shows are trying to shove storylines down my face. So like the David story arc and the Adam story arc they're great. Like I respect both of them. I think it's wonderful that they both like went through those journeys while they were out there. I just got tired of it. And so like I'm not a huge David fan, but yeah, I mean, he's number 4 on my list. I mean, you can't do second chances and not bring David back. Like he's one of the most memorable players of recent Survivor. I think he's one of the best players of recent Survivor. But I mean, I totally agree with you. He's not physically important enough to keep pre-merge. I think he's too big of a target. I mean, I think he definitely goes the way of Shireen in Second Chances Part 2. I think he's easy pre-merge boot. in his second chance of season. He can find idols though. He's great at finding idols, so you never know.
Yeah, that's
I
one thing
don't.
he's got going for him. He can find an idol.
Yeah,
So.
I just think he's too much of a liability. But I mean, Ty is also too much of a liability, and he's gone far both times. So
That's very true. Aubrey, she
yeah,
everyone knew her game, but they still let her get far.
yeah.
So
But Aubrey was useful in challenges.
yeah, I guess. But you know what I mean.
Yeah.
But
They just
yeah.
voted off all of Aubrey's friends, so maybe they do that with David.
I mean, somebody's got to be the pre-merge boot, and so I'm assuming it.
five or six people have to be the pre-merge boot.
Yeah. So out of
7.
yeah, but I could see it being him, but
Yeah.
I would love to be surprised and it not be. You know, that would be a pleasant surprise. It's just one of those things. Like he's gonna come back.
Oh yeah.
Like it's just a matter of time. I don't think Game Changers was his season, and I'm kind of glad he didn't come back then.
Yeah.
So I think he needs to come back for either some sort of All Stars edition.
Yeah.
Whether it be second chance or not, he's gonna come back.
Yeah.
So,
now that I'm thinking about it, though, Game Changers probably would have been the best time for him to come back. I think physically, there's no way he had enough time to recover to be able to come back out and play again. But I mean, let's just think about it. David's gonna suffer the most from coming back because of his reputation, and he wouldn't have had a reputation in Game Changers. No one would have known who he was. So I think
true.
he would benefit most from being on Game Changers. Like if you swap him out for Zeke, there's the odds that he goes just as far as Zeke. There's odds that he doesn't go as far as Zeke because he is such a physical liability. But I mean, I think he would benefit more from being on a season where people don't have that perception of him. Too late for that now, though. So
yeah. I forgot about that they filmed those back to back. But you know, it's just how it worked out. But
yeah.
I'd still be excited. I feel like he'd sort of be like Tony, you know, like Tony played such a good game, but you know, people figured it out, and now, like you would have to
do it again.
He would have to change it entirely, and I'm not sure he can.
He'd have to keep his mouth shut. He'd have to just sit around and be a lump for a while.
And I feel like that's David's situation, which is similar. Of course, Cochran was kind of the schemer from South Pacific, and look how far he got. So maybe David could pull it out after all.
But Cochran didn't go far in South Pacific. I think that's the difference, is that Cochran was a schemer, but he failed. So he wasn't a threat strategically the first time.
Yeah, that's true.
But David was, because David almost won. Cochran was never going to win South Pacific.
Cochran thought he was. But
it's fine. He had Karamoan. We're going to keep seeing him. So,
oh God, at reunions at least.
So that he can stand there awkwardly as Jeff Probst fawns over him.
Oh God, let's not even get into that. Okay, my turn.
Yep.
Oh wait, did I just go? I pick a woman.
You did. You pick a woman now.
Okay.
Your last woman.
My last woman. Okay. My last woman goes to someone that she's from a recent season. She is a runner-up. So she made it very far. But it was just the person she was with. She was never going to win that final tribal. But I would love to see her play again. So I'm talking about Carolyn Rivera from Worlds Apart. Mama C, as she is affectionately called. But I mean, she almost went home that first tribal, but she flipped the script and they voted out So. Mm-hmm. So from the get-go, she had game in her. And then she blindsided Max and Shireen, which was funny because I'm not a big Max fan.
I am not either.
And then, you know, once some merge comes, she gets in that majority alliance, and they're just kind of pagonging people. So we don't really see much from her from that. But then, once it starts time for them to start splintering, she works with Mike, and they get out Tyler and Dan. Like those are probably the highlights of that season is those 2 votes, and she plays a big role in that. And she's been like she was up for the voting in Second Chance, didn't get it. I don't know necessarily why. Maybe it was because her season was still airing and people weren't sure if she was going to win or not, so they just didn't bother.
A big part.
They just didn't bother voting for her. And then she was considered for Game Changers, was cut at the last minute. I personally would have rather seen her on there than some people that ended up on there, but we won't get into that. But I think the producers have shown interest in her coming back, so I think we'll see her back. But I think she's a great strategist. She's physically strong. She's not a liability. Like she works out, all that stuff. So she should be fine, and I'd love to see her again. Did she make your list?
She did, yeah. She was. Where was she? Sorry, I'm flying blind. She was my number 7, so she was in my top 10. Yeah.
Cool.
I love Mama C, rightful winner of Worlds Apart. I'd love to see her again.
Yeah, like I said, if Mike's not in the final, she wins. That's how I see it, at least.
Rodney beats her, I think, but
blue collar for Rodney.
Blue collar.
But
he'd have Dan, he'd have Sierra,
I guess. But
and then all the other votes, I think, would probably funnel to him.
Sierra actually voted for Carolyn, though.
That's true, but that's because Sierra didn't like Mike.
I don't know, but
I think Sierra would vote for Rodney. Jen, Joe, Haley all vote for Rodney. I have heard that. I watched his Ponderosa. They liked him. They thought he was funny. They would have voted for him over Carolyn.
Thank God Mike won then. But anyway, if I was a juror, I'd vote for her. I thought she did.
I would too.
Great game. So, all right, your turn.
All right. So I don't know. I'm pretty torn. I don't know. I'm going back and forth between, because I think I need someone else who can win challenges, in terms of female strength. Because the only person I have who's super physically dominating is Sydney, and then Christine is good at challenges, but not great. So I don't know. I really want to pick someone in my top 10, but I think I'm going to go with one of my alternates, actually, who I don't know. I just think she might be more interesting to watch. There's probably not a very good chance that she comes back. I think she's pre-jury. I think she's easily forgettable, which I hate because I think she's a great cast in general. I think she's a good character. I think she's really strong socially. I think she's pretty game savvy, and she definitely can hold her own in challenges. As is evident in her stint on Redemption Island. And so while part of me really wants to pick Jacqueline as my last woman, I can't because John's already on my tribe. So instead, I'm going to pick Marissa Peterson from Blood vs. Water, Jervis's niece.
Interesting.
Yeah, I don't know. I really like Marissa. When I'm watching clips of Blood vs. Water, I don't know. I would really love to see her again. I think it'd be interesting to watch her play. She would benefit from being on a season without her uncle, one in which he can't open his mouth and ruin things for her. She's also prone to opening her mouth and saying something she shouldn't, but she didn't do that while she was in the game. She did it while she was on Redemption Island, which is still the game, but she'd already been voted out at that point. So pre getting voted out, she didn't really open her mouth and fly off the handle or anything. She was targeted because of Jervis, not because of her. So I think she's someone who knows when to hold her tongue. And I don't know. I'd love to see her play again.
Oh, okay. I liked Marissa for the brief time we actually got to watch her. Not someone who was on my radar. I guess I'm not sure if she would actually ever even be asked back.
Right.
Just because I'm not sure people even remember her, but definitely someone I wouldn't personally mind seeing again because, physically strong, entertaining. I agree she would have to change up how she played
Yeah.
because she was a little unfiltered, and that can
Yeah.
get you in trouble. And it seemed like anyone who took on Brad Culpepper went home. So, she probably, I guess, should have tried to lay low. I don't know. I don't
Yeah.
know if it might have been out of her hands with all the pregame alliance stuff that was going on. I don't
Probably.
know. But
Yeah.
I'd love to see her back. Yeah.
Yeah. It'll probably never
She's not
happen.
on my list,
Yeah.
but
It'll probably never happen, but I'd love it.
yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
And now
Guess
we
it's
are
me.
down to, it's our last two guys.
Yeah.
All right, your turn.
Again, I'm conflicted. I don't know. It's just like I feel like I have a pretty interesting tribe so far, but I feel like I don't know. I need that like the really out there character. You know what I mean? Like you gotta have your Keith Nail. You got to. This person is definitely not Keith Nail by any stretch of the definition, but I think in terms of archetype, like kind of kooky, old man, he definitely knows how to play the game, and I'm not entirely sure that Keith does know how to play like deviously. This is another person who I'm not entirely sure will ever come back, but not because the producers don't want him to. And
Well,
that is it's Shane. It's Shane Powers. They definitely want him to. I mean, they've tried to get him back several times. He's just always cut at the last second. So like, it's not that they don't want him back; it's that they want other people back more. Listen, he's making it onto my season. I'm not a huge Shane fan. Like the way he handled himself after the Second Chances season really got on my nerves because like it was an America vote. You're not entitled to your spot, but like I think he still deserves a second chance, and I think he would be interesting to watch. I would prefer to see him on something like Blood versus Water, maybe playing with his son Boston, but like I'll put him in my tribe for second chances.
Interesting. I mean, I love Shane as a character. I mean,
Yeah.
he's probably one of the reasons why Panama is so memorable. Um, but I guess in the second chance voting, like we said before, there's just a new generation of Survivor fans that are younger and probably haven't even seen Panama. Although if you haven't, I would highly suggest it because you get to see Cerie's origin, Shane, Aris from Blood versus Water, and even if you don't like Danielle, like that's pretty interesting. And I like Terry as a character. I mean, he's fun. I hate what happened to him in Cambodia.
That was poor timing on my part. Sorry.
I wonder if he is a potential contender for a second chance season because he really didn't get to play again.
I don't know though because he did play. Like he was out there for a while.
He was out there. Well, he made it to like day 10 or something, didn't he?
No, he was the last. No, he made it past the 3 tribe.
It was after Varner.
Yeah,
I think.
Yeah, he made it past the 3 tribes. Like he made it past the absorption of what were they called? Wow, I can't remember the terrible tribe, the yellow one.
Yeah,
Angkor. He passed the Angkor absorption.
I guess I don't know. I mean, I'd be okay if they brought him back just because of what happened.
If they do another medevac season like Philippines, I think, even though he wasn't medevaced, but like his was weird because it wasn't a quit, but it wasn't a medevac. It's like the only one of its kind.
It was a family emergency.
Yeah.
But anyway, we're talking about Shane. Just an entertaining character. He did not make my list because from what I pick up on Shane, he's kind of done with Survivor after being burned so many times because he has been in contention for pretty much every season that's had returning players since like they considered him for Micronesia, Heroes versus Villains, Blood versus Water with his son, Uh,
Do it again.
so, and he's always made it to the finals, but he's always cut. So I guess he's just kind of like he had a survivor funeral after. So to me, that says you're done if you pull a
I
stunt
mean,
like that.
yeah, biting the
But
hand that feeds you a little bit.
but who knows with Shane really? Because he might say he's done, but I feel like if they promised him like you know we're legitimately gonna like you're gonna be on the show, like no
Yeah.
doubt about it. Like
I mean,
I
how do
think
you
he
say
would,
no to that?
yeah. But I don't know. I mean, I'd love to see him back. I just don't think he'll do it after what's happened. But uh, you know, it is what it is. But
Yeah.
definitely one of the more memorable people
Mhm.
who've only played once. So I'd like to see him back.
Mhm.
Um, okay, my last pick, and then our tribes will be complete. So uh, I have P and John as my muscle, and David and Josh are sort of like my brains for my guys. But I think I'm going to pick one more person who has a little muscle and brains.
Mhm.
Uh, and this person, if they were on any other season, I think they'd go far, uh, farther, I guess. But anytime a fan is on a fans versus favorite season, fans are automatically at a disadvantage. It's just a fact of life. But uh, it's I'm talking about Reynold Topher from
Okay.
Karamoan. Um, I thought he had some good moments. He just kind of was on the wrong side of the numbers at the merge because they were basically just pagonging Corinne and Malcolm's alliance essentially.
Mhm.
But he probably had that the most memorable tribal council is when he and Malcolm play their idols and Philip goes home.
Yeah.
Like that's probably the most memorable tribal council. But I'd love to see him back because I think he's a smart guy. Like I said, on any other season he goes far, but
Yeah.
it's just the way it worked out with the like that Corinne. I mean not Corinne. Cochran and Dawn alliance was not budging. So and he was too much of a physical threat to them, so he had to
Mhm.
go. But I'd love to see him back. As far as I know, he hasn't been asked to return, but I'd love to see him back.
Mhm.
Did he make your list, Will?
He did not. I prefer Eddie over Reynolds. I had Eddie on my list, but I did not have Reynolds. Um, I don't know. I just think Reynolds wasn't as socially adept, if that makes sense. Like I think Eddie, Eddie made connections with people like Andrea, I mean, he wasn't like close to Cochran, but he tried with Cochran. He would talk to Cochran. I don't think Reynolds did as good of a job at attempting to pull himself in. Um, and I think Eddie benefited from that more because Reynolds was a bigger physical threat, and Reynolds just didn't do enough to prevent that. So, like, if one of the two of them were to come back, I'd rather see Eddie, but I'd be okay. Like, I'd understand if they brought Reynolds back. So I didn't have him on, but no, he definitely was not a part of Operation Stealth.
Stealth R Us.
Stealth R Us.
That's what it's called.
Oh, Stealth
Uh,
R Us.
even though I'd rather not remember what it was called. Uh,
The
uh,
Dominatrix.
so that's our tribes.
Yeah.
Let's talk about really quickly. We don't have to go into too much detail, but let's talk. You talk about your male and female honorable mentions who you considered but didn't make it, and then I
Okay.
will.
Okay. So for guys, I have actually in my top 10, I had Hayden Moss, Blood versus Water, and Rodney Lavoie from Worlds Apart. Um, Two very different people. I don't like Rodney. I really like Hayden. I think Hayden in any other season goes pretty deep, plays really well. Rodney played pretty well the first time. He just wasn't likable. So I don't know. I have both of them in my top 10. Love to see them come back. And then other honorable mentions, I have Jason from Samoa, Matt from Redemption Island, Brett from Samoa, Eddie from Karamoan, and I have LJ from Cagayan. And then in terms of women, in my top 10, actually, I mean, I mentioned that Marissa was one of my alternates, but in my top 10 that I didn't pick is Alicia from One World, because I think Alicia played pretty well. I'd love to see her play again. I have Jessica Lewis from Millennials versus Gen X, because talk about deserving a second chance. We've already talked about Jacqueline, and I have Morgan McLeod from Cagayan. Also, I would love to see Queen Morgan play again. I think she's definitely underrated. I think, Cagayan just had a bunch of people who were actually really good at playing the game. And I think Morgan was one of those. And then I also have Mari from Millennials vs. Gen X, Trish from Cagayan, and Sierra Reed from Tocantins.
All right. I didn't hear anyone that I would contest. I'd be okay with any of those people, especially the Cagayan people.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I pretty much liked the whole merged group of Cagayan players. I'd be okay if we just had a season where they came back.
Right. Let's just do Cagayan over again and just not let people like Lindsay or Cliff come back.
Yeah, I love that. It's probably one of my favorite merged casts. As for me, Will actually chose a lot of my alternates. He picked John Mish. He picked Jay, Kenny. So, but like he said, I had LJ because I think he had some game in him. He was just one of Tony's victims, one of many. I actually had someone that a lot of people may not remember, but I had John Carroll from Marquesas. And really, his elimination is one of the most pivotal moments in Survivor history because it's people on the bottom teaming up and voting off the person at the top. And so his whole rise and fall is probably the best storyline to come out of Marquesas. It's it's not the most exciting season in the world, but I think that was very interesting to watch because he is like so cocky and people turning on each other is really unprecedented for that season in the early seasons. And he just does not see it coming. And it's probably one of my favorite blind sides, but I'd love to see him back. He's said before that he's never been asked back, but he said he'd love to come back. And I follow him on social media, and he's staying in shape and all that. So I think he'd be great. So especially if Survivor wants to. It seems like every All-Star season lately, they want to have at least a handful of old school people. So I'd like to see him come back. I think him and T-Bird teaming up would be like a fun old school alliance. But he just didn't make my list because there was just so many other, good choices. But I wouldn't complain if he was back. I too had Jessica Lewis. I had Sydney Gillen, who you picked for your tribe. Actually had both Sabrina and Chelsea from One World, who I think were both kind of overshadowed by Kim. But I think on another season, I think they both do well. Sabrina is a really good social player. If for some reason you had picked Taj, I would have picked Sabrina because I feel like they're very similar play styles. Sabrina's good in challenges, all that good stuff. She was considered for second chance, so clearly they have an interest in her. She just didn't get voted in by the public, but and then Chelsea, she's another one. She was overshadowed. I'd like to see her on her own without Kim or Sabrina. And as far as I know, she hasn't been considered for anything. But you know, she's just she was a fun character, and you know, she was the one who developed the close relationships with some of the guys that ultimately led to their downfall.
Which is
But
odd because they all said the opposite.
what'd you say?
I said, which is odd because they all said the opposite when they were grilling her in the jury. They're like, why do you hate people?
I thought she had a great relationship with Jay. Like they were both
I
from
thought she
South.
did too.
They were both from South Carolina.
Mm-hmm.
Like even when he was thinking he wasn't going to go home, when he does go home, he's like, you know, Chelsea's telling me I'm okay, so
Yeah.
I'm going to trust her. So, but they both get overshadowed by Kim, and I'd like to see them both play in their own right. They just didn't make my list because I had so many other good choices, you know. And also, my last one was Michelle from Millennials versus Gen X, a very underrated player. I think her downfall was getting too close with Taylor and Jay because they were Taylor specifically was not the best player. But I think she made good moves in the pre-merge on her own. I mean, orchestrating, voting off Mari, like that was fun. And then once the swap happens, you think she's screwed, but she actually convinces Chris to vote out Cece. So I think very underrated player, and I'd be okay with her coming back too.
Yeah.
So. All right. Do we want to go over our tribes one more time? I'll let you go first.
All right. So my second chances part D tribe is Hannah, Benry, Sydney, John Mish, Jen, Jay, Christine, Kenny, Marissa, and Shane.
And my tribe is Reynold, Pete, David Wright, Josh, John Cody, Natalie Bolton, Taj, T-Bird, RC. So let us know in the comments, you know, who you think picked the best tribe, who you think has the winner. It was definitely me. That's all I'll say. Will's saying it's him.
It is me.
We'll see about that. We'll see what they say. And stay tuned. This was our first show, but we're going to be doing, like I think the next episode we're going to be doing is our season rankings, which should be a lot of fun because I've already I've tabulated the results of those, and let's just say there were some interesting results from that where Will and I don't necessarily see eye to eye. But yeah, just stay tuned. We'll be doing some other stuff. And ultimately, you know, we're just sort of biding our time waiting for the next season in September.
Heroes versus hustlers.
I'm going to have to get used to saying that.
They need a place name.
I thought San Juan del Sur was hard. All right. Well, thank you for listening, and don't forget to subscribe and stay tuned, and we'll see you later. Bye-bye.